At the very moment when life seemed to have collapsed entirely, the protagonist finds an unexpected chance to start anew, but not alone. After a painful betrayal and a grueling fight for his children, he comes face to face with the darkest parts of his past. Yet within this chaos, a new light begins to shine, a source of support, an unexpected connection, and even the spark of love from an unanticipated place. What further trials await him? And can he emerge victorious without losing himself? This story is about betrayal and forgiveness, pain and healing, and how difficult moments can lead to a new beginning. And before you watch this video, my friend, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share this video with your friends. The moment I tossed my bags into the hotel room, ready to collapse onto the bed, my phone buzzed with an unwanted message. My boss was demanding that I be in the office by 9 in the morning with no excuses. I sighed, realizing I'd have to rebook my flight, pack everything up again, and race to the airport in record time. Calling Emma at that hour made no sense. It would only wake the kids. I decided to quietly slip into the house, grab my things, and head straight back out. As I approached the house, it was dark inside, except for a faint light coming from our bedroom. Carefully passing through the hallway, I heard voices, Emma's and a man's. My heart skipped a beat. Most likely the kids were spending the night at her sister's. The realization hit hard, twisting my stomach into knots. Emma was seeing someone else. The advice from my grandparents echoed in my head. Keep calm and don't let anger take over. I took a few slow breaths, reminding myself that, like my grandfather, my temper could be dangerous if unchecked. Conflict wouldn't solve anything. I needed proof. I took out my new work phone with a high-quality camera, a sensitive microphone, and a flash drive capable of storing hours of footage. Hiding in the shadows, I started recording. Seeing them together hurt, but I pushed the pain aside, reminding myself that I needed to act rationally. This betrayal made me question everything, even whether the kids were really mine. DNA tests were now on my to-do list. During the recording, something in their conversation struck a nerve so deeply that I couldn't stay silent. I burst into the room and came face to face with the man. I later learned his name was Mason. We fought until he was out the door. Emma stood there in shock, trembling, retreating to a corner. "Come here," I demanded. It was as if I was watching myself from outside my body, observing a scene from someone else's life, barely controlling my actions. When my anger reaches that point, everything blurs and memories fade. This was the 4th time I'd felt that way. I repeated, "Come here." And she crawled toward me, fear written across her face. "I'm sorry, Michael," she whispered, barely audible, her voice shaking. I felt the anger rising again. "Save your apologies, Emma. Do you regret all those nights with Mason, too?" She stayed silent, her face pale. "Please don't touch me. I'm so sorry," she pleaded, her voice barely reaching me. "You've desecrated everything. Our home, our bedroom, our bed," I said, bitterness lacing my words. "You've betrayed not just me, but our children, too." She curled up, visibly trembling, and I began to calm down slightly, feeling the rage start to dissipate. "Be out by noon," I told her, pointing to the bed. "Take everything from here, especially the bed. Leave my things neatly on the floor. Respect what's mine. Understood?" Her voice was weak, almost inaudible. "How am I supposed to do that?" she asked. "You'll figure it out," I replied coldly. "Maybe ask your brothers, the ones I lent money to. By noon," I emphasized, making it clear there would be no delays. She nodded, curling up as I left the room. I packed my things, tossed them in the car, and took one last look at the house. There was no sign of Mason. When I got into the car and looked at myself in the rearview mirror, I saw blood on my shirt and bruises beginning to form, a fitting addition to my exhausted reflection. Ignoring the pain, I headed to the nearest hospital. The doctor's diagnosis was grim: a broken nose, several cracked ribs, a possible concussion, and numerous cuts and bruises. They wanted to keep me overnight, but I refused. I needed to get back to work. When the police arrived, I briefly told them my story, saying I'd been attacked and didn't remember the details, only that I ended up in worse shape. Mason wasn't at the emergency room, which meant he had left virtually unscathed. Returning to the office, I went straight to Olivia Smith, our vice president. Her office had a small private bathroom, and I took the moment to splash some water on my face, hoping to clear my thoughts before the start of the workday. When I stepped back out, I noticed Emma's brother sitting in the hallway, looking as exhausted as I felt. Taking a deep breath, I entered Olivia's office to bring her up to speed on recent events. Olivia listened attentively, thoughtfully absorbing what I shared. When I finished, she paused briefly and then suggested, "I know an excellent divorce lawyer, Addison, a friend from college. She can help." Without delay, Olivia called Addison and arranged a meeting for that morning. "What happened?" she gently asked. I briefly explained that I'd come home to an unpleasant surprise. I asked her to help me find additional support, and she nodded in her usual calm, reassuring way. While Olivia handled her morning tasks, I sat beside her and spoke with Addison over the phone to save time and avoid retelling everything later. Over the next hour, I also helped Olivia tackle some issues left by my brothers at the company, a grim reminder of how they had been holding us back. As we wrapped up, Addison arrived, and I shared my story, leaving out some of the intense anger I had faced. Instead, I simply played a recording for both of them. In the video, Mason asked Emma, "Am I more important to you than your kids?" Her response was disturbing. "I'm yours. I don't care about them." Addison and Olivia looked at me, clearly shocked. "I want full custody," I declared firmly, even if it meant sacrificing a significant portion of my assets. "I don't want to pay child support if it gives her any control over my kids," I added. "They're currently with her parents, but I need to bring them home." Addison met my gaze. "I'll fight for you," she promised. "But keep in mind, even with this recording, obtaining full custody won't be easy. She might claim it was just a moment of irritation." She began filling out the paperwork. "I'll start preparing the necessary documents. Give Emma my contact information and have her lawyer reach out to me," she instructed. Then, looking at me seriously, she said, "Stay calm, Michael. Don't let anger control you." I felt a mix of gratitude and embarrassment, nodding in response. "Thank you, Addison. I'll do my best to keep it together." She exchanged a few quiet words with Olivia and left. Olivia and I returned to work, though the tension inside me didn't subside. I realized the growing frustration was tied to the thought of Emma moving out by noon. Part of me almost wanted to stop her, but the stronger part wished for her immediate departure. "Olivia," I said, glancing at the clock, "I need to take care of a personal matter. I'll be back in an hour or two." "Of course, Michael. You've been a big help today. Just don't be gone too long," she replied with an encouraging smile. I quickly headed out, determined to keep my anger in check. When I arrived home, a rented moving truck was in the driveway, and Emma's brothers were carrying out a mattress. 2 police cars were parked nearby, and 3 officers observed the move. I took my laptop and cautiously approached them. "I have a recording that might explain last night's events. May I show it to you?" I asked. One of the officers, a stocky woman, looked at me intently. "Are you Michael Martin, Emma's husband?" she asked. "Yes, Sergeant. I'm prepared to cooperate fully. But first, please watch the recording," I replied. She nodded, though her stance remained guarded. "All right, Mr. Martin. We'll view it, but you'll need to stay here." "I understand, Sergeant," I answered confidently, remaining in place. I pressed play on the video, ensuring the volume was loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. When the footage reached the part where Emma disdainfully spoke about children's games, she suddenly dropped the box she was holding, her face turning pale, and she hurriedly began gathering her belongings. In the commotion, a small packet with a white substance slipped out of one of the boxes. "Sergeant, "You might want to take a look at this," I said, pointing to the packet. The sergeant noticed it too, and after calling for backup, quickly approached Emma. I remembered a moment from the video and zoomed in on the mirror by the bed, where a faint trace of a white substance was visible. I showed it to another officer, who immediately reported it to the sergeant. Within minutes, Emma was in handcuffs, tears streaming down her face while her brothers stood nearby, stunned. "Sergeant, what's happening?" I asked, trying to understand what had unfolded. "Your wife is being detained for possession of a controlled substance. We'll run some tests, but it appears she's been using illegal substances," the sergeant responded. "And what about my children? When will I be able to see them?" I asked, my anxiety growing. "Where are they now?" she asked, softening her tone. "They're with her parents, about 7 miles from here." The sergeant's expression grew serious. "If I were you, I'd pick them up as soon as possible." Realizing that Emma was in custody, I understood that I could finally take my children with me. A mix of relief and anxiety filled me. "Yes, of course, I need to get them. I just don't want them to see anything upsetting," I admitted. The sergeant nodded understandingly. "I'll stay here until the movers finish, and then I'll accompany you to your relative's house. We'll handle everything, but I'll also need to discuss your injuries with you," she said. Taking a deep breath, I began to explain. "I came home and found Emma with Mason Scott. I recorded everything, and after she said awful things about our children, I couldn't take it. I told her to be out of the house by noon. After that, I went straight to the hospital, not entirely sure how I got hurt or if Mason was injured. I handed the sergeant my medical records. She examined them carefully, raising an eyebrow. "Are you in pain now?" she asked. "Oddly, no, though I'm sure I'll feel it later," I replied, feeling slightly dizzy. "By the way, you have expressive eyes," I added with a faint smile, leaning on her patrol car. She looked at me with a hint of concern. "Maybe you should go back to the hospital," she suggested. "I'll be fine, just really tired. I've barely slept 2 hours. I need to pick up the kids and get back to work. Luckily, we have daycare, so they'll be safe," I explained. She nodded. "All right, but I'm going with you to pick them up," she replied firmly. I thanked her, and we waited as Emma's brothers finished up their work. Once they were done, I locked up the house and got into the sergeant's patrol car. During the drive, she offered some advice. "If I were you, I'd file for temporary custody and request a restraining order, at least to limit her access to the home and the kids temporarily. It might help create a stable environment for them." "I'll do that," I promised, calling Addison to have the paperwork ready by morning. By that time, I'd started calling the sergeant by her name, Avery, and even allowed myself a bit of flirtation. Avery gave a reserved smile, noticing it. "You're rather upbeat for someone in your situation," she remarked. "I'm about to see my kids, and I thought I might lose that chance. I'm lucky to have people around me who support me. Emma's actions have caused pain, but I won't let them destroy my future. I'm focused on what matters most," I said confidently. "In other words, I'm doing everything I can to live fully, Avery," I added, giving her a playful wink. She shook her head with a slight smile. "I can't tell if you're wise, reckless, or just incredibly exhausted," she said. We reached Emma's parents' house without incident. Avery informed them that we were taking the children, and they didn't object. They never treated me warmly, and I suspected they had caught wind of Emma's affair. But my kids were thrilled to see me, especially with the patrol car parked right in our driveway. My 6-year-old daughter, Hope, begged me to turn on the siren, while 4-year-old Jack immediately climbed onto Avery's lap, his face lighting up at the sight of her. He called her Aunt Avery, which made her smile and roll her eyes with a light laugh. "Aunt Avery, can you come over to our house?" Hope asked, her eyes glowing with excitement. Avery smiled gently, shaking her head. "I'd love to, sweetheart, but I have to work." When Hope invited her to dinner, I seized the chance and asked, "Avery, what's your usual work schedule?" 9 to 6, Monday through Friday, she replied, looking at me attentively. Great, I said, glancing at Hope, who seemed thrilled with the idea. How about joining us for dinner tomorrow at 7 p.m.? Hope would love to show you her doll collection. Hope clapped her hands in joy. That would be amazing, Dad. Avery hesitated a little, blushing slightly. Michael, she started, but I looked at her hopefully. You don't want to disappoint Hope, do you? With a soft sigh, Avery turned to Hope. All right, Hope, what are we having for dinner? Chicken. Hope giggled happily. Avery nodded, smiling tenderly. All right, I'll bring some ice cream, just for the kids, and maybe to keep an eye on you, she teased. You're acting a bit differently. Thank you, Aunt Avery. Hope and Jack shouted in unison as she pulled up to my office. I waved goodbye, feeling grateful for her support. As she drove away, I noticed her glancing back, her gaze thoughtful and distant as she quietly murmured, "What am I doing?" Avery's thoughts wandered as she drove off. Michael's situation could get serious if Mason Scott decides to press charges, she thought to herself. It's a bit strange that I was called to his house like this. She sighed, lost in deep thought. I've admired Michael Martin for a long time, watching him spend time with his kids at the park every Sunday. He always seemed like a genuinely good person. She remembered how nervous she felt talking to him at the park. And now he's flirting with me? Really? She whispered. I'm nothing special. I was lucky I didn't have to arrest him. Later, after dropping the kids off at daycare, I met with Olivia. Something about my interactions with Avery felt strange. Maybe I was just tired, or maybe it was something deeper. Surprisingly, I felt almost no grief over the state of my marriage, as if the weight had long since lifted. After finishing everything up, I looked at Oliver and said, I think I need to take tomorrow off. Everything just feels too heavy right now. Take the day, Michael, Olivia replied sympathetically. If you need anything, let me know, but try to rest. That evening, I ordered pizza for dinner. When the kids asked about their mom, I tried to keep it simple. Your mom and I had a big argument, but we both love you very much. I added gently, because of the argument, Mom is going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a little while. Hope hugged me tightly, her voice reassuring. It's okay, Dad. We're happy as long as you're with us. As she nestled against me, I remembered all those nights they probably spent at their grandparents', while Emma was off somewhere unknown. A wave of anger rose within me, but I suppressed it. That night, I arranged for a nanny to come in the morning, in case it would be hard to get up on time. I left a spare key under the doormat, transferred most of our joint savings to my personal account, and blocked our shared credit cards. I thought about emptying our safe, as I had the only key, but decided to save that for later. We all settled in the guest room that night so the kids could be close by if they needed anything. The next morning I was awakened by the cheerful voices of Hope and Jack saying someone had arrived. As my phone buzzed, I heard a voice at the door. Mr. Martin, this is Sue from the nanny service. Yes, Sue, thank you for coming, I replied, feeling relieved. Feeling a bit out of my element, I texted, The key is under the mat. Come on in and head upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Sue, a woman in her 50s and a seasoned professional, took charge quickly. While I filled her in, she skillfully prepared Hope for preschool and found a way to entertain her younger brother. Her warm attitude toward the kids was reassuring, allowing me to finally relax, which I desperately needed. Later, a courier delivered documents from Edison's office, a temporary custody order and a restraining order against Emma. Soon after, Edison called to inform me that Emma had been served divorce papers while in custody. With the drug charges and the evidence, Edison was confident that we had a strong case for full custody. While Sue picked up Hope from preschool, I went to the bank. I moved valuable items to a new safe deposit box, leaving only Emma's belongings in the old one. I then crossed the street to open new checking and savings accounts solely in my name. I was fine with Emma eventually receiving her share after the divorce, but I didn't want our funds used for anything illegal. Despite the physical strain from my injuries, The pain wasn't as intense as I'd expected. My nose still ached, so I stopped by the store for chicken to make a simple dinner. Sue left around 5, but I asked her to return the next day. Later, Avery came over for dinner, which thrilled the kids. Hope curiously asked to see Avery's police gear, and Avery gently explained the dangers of real weapons, satisfying her curiosity. Avery kept glancing at me with concern, noticing how drained I looked, and I played up my weariness a bit, relishing her attention. We settled on the couch with the kids to watch a movie, and I joked that her presence was a huge relief. Midway through the second movie, Avery shared details of a recent interrogation with Mason Scott, asking me to keep it confidential. Apparently, Mason had been hiding out in a nearby hotel, looking highly agitated. She'd even shown him a recording, pointing out how he recoiled at my direction and the camera. She mentioned my injuries to underscore how lucky he was to avoid severe consequences. Avery said she was prepared to press charges on my behalf, but warned that if I sought revenge myself, it would lead to serious repercussions. Mason seemed uninterested in pressing charges against me. I thanked her and assured her that given my hazy memory of that night, I had no plans to pursue further action, though the idea of sending a copy of the video to his wife crossed my mind. Avery left around 10, and I tucked the kids in beside me. Over the next few days, I left all communication with Emma to my lawyer. My ribs healed in a few weeks, though my nose took a bit longer. After Emma moved out, I decided to update the bedroom. A fresh coat of paint, an elegant ceiling trim, new curtains, and a luxurious bed with dark wooden furniture finally gave the room a personal touch. I convinced Avery to stop by a few evenings, and though I hadn't made a direct move yet, I planned to as soon as my nose fully healed. It still hurt, and I didn't want to aggravate the injury. Work was going well too. I arranged for Sue to help during my business trips, which, with Olive's support, were now less frequent. When the doctor finally cleared me, I knew it was time to express my feelings. One evening, while Avery and I were watching a movie, I went to get ice cream. Returning, I sat on the couch next to her, a bit closer than usual. We ate ice cream in silence, watching the film until I put my arm around her shoulders. She looked at me, raising an eyebrow. "So what's up with you today?" she asked, smiling slightly. Smiling back, I replied, "The doctor said I'm all good. No more restrictions. Think of this as my move. Is that clear enough?" She blushed slightly, glancing away. "Why would you want to kiss me? I'm nothing special." I gently touched her lips with my finger. "Avery, to me, you're perfect." She radiated a certain warmth, an undeniable glow that drew me in, and her eyes, they were mesmerizing. "Can I kiss you?" I asked, but before she could answer, I leaned in and kissed her. It was the moment I had been waiting for my entire life, a moment that made the night unforgettable. The movie played unnoticed. We were too absorbed in each other. To my surprise, she agreed to meet again the next evening. This time, Avery was noticeably more relaxed. Over the course of the evening, she admitted that she'd only kissed one guy before me, and it hadn't left pleasant memories. She opened up about her insecurities, and I, wanting to support her, gently steered the conversation to make her feel comfortable. I asked if she was free on Saturday, and she invited me to dinner at her place. On Saturday evening, she opened the door wearing a dark blouse and pants. I couldn't resist teasing her. "Why so dark? Never thought of trying something a bit brighter?" She laughed as I handed her a bouquet of roses and a box of chocolates. She blushed, and I kissed her again. It had been a long time since I'd felt anything like this, and I could tell she felt the same. "So, what's for dinner?" I asked, catching the appetizing scent wafting from the kitchen. "Shepherd's pie," she replied with a smile. "It's in the oven," she said, but with a playful grin I suggested, "Maybe you could turn it off for a few minutes." She hesitated but eventually did, and we spent a passionate evening together. Later, we collapsed onto the couch, savoring the warmth and closeness. When we finally got around to the shepherd's pie, it was a bit overcooked, but that didn't bother us at all. I happily ate a few slices, enjoying it with garlic bread, while Avery, looking happier than ever, joined me. She looked at me with shining eyes and whispered, "Today is my lucky day." We curled up on the couch, but our moment was interrupted by the endless ringing of my phone. Avery's neighbor, Beth, was calling in a panic. When Avery picked up, Beth sounded agitated. "Avery, are you okay? We're all standing outside about to break down your door, but we thought we'd call first. You being a cop and all." Avery rolled her eyes and glanced at me. "Beth, I'm fine. I just have a friend over, don't worry." Clearly intrigued, Beth asked, "Is it that cute guy from last night?" Avery smiled and replied, "Yes, it's him." Laughter and approving cheers echoed from outside. It seemed the neighbors had gathered out of curiosity. That night, we entertained them in our own way. The next morning, I got up early, showered, got dressed, and apologizing to Avery, said I needed to pick up my kids. She gave me a sleepy smile, kissed me, and promised we'd see each other soon. After making sure she was all right, I closed the door behind me, only to be greeted by a small crowd of her neighbors. Some of them were holding cameras and applauded as I stepped outside. Chuckling, I gave a slight bow, feeling a mix of embarrassment and amusement as they waved at me as though it were a royal event. With a light heart, I walked away, humming an old song my grandfather used to sing. Those morning moments stayed with me, little reminders that happiness had become attainable again. Over the following months, Avery and I found a comfortable rhythm in our relationship, although I couldn't stay with her as often as I would have liked, due to the time I spent with my kids, Hope and Jack. Nevertheless, every moment with her was meaningful. Yet, two things began to emerge. First, Avery seemed to keep a certain distance, raising walls when our conversations grew too deep. Second, she always wore dark clothing, black, gray, maybe white. I wanted to tell her, wear colors that celebrate life, not ones that hide it. Meanwhile, my divorce finally moved forward. My lawyer, Edison, proposed a fair settlement to Emma, but she refused, despite Edison's warning that it might be the best offer she'd receive. When the divorce began, I discovered that Emma's infidelity had been going on for about a year before I finally caught her. It all started when I went away for the weekend, and Emma attended a party hosted by Dan, a former friend. That night, he got her heavily drunk and pulled her into his reckless lifestyle. This encounter sparked a 2-month affair, full of wild parties and secret trips while I was out of town. When Dan started to worry that I might find out, he backed off, handing Emma over to Mason, who continued the relationship with her until I finally caught them together. Subsequently, Emma was accused of using illegal substances and was sent to rehab. Incredibly, even after everything that had happened, Emma still hoped I could forgive her, or at least consider joint custody of the children. She even had her therapist reach out to me on her behalf. During this time, I learned that she had chosen this chaotic lifestyle of her own accord, neglecting our children and me, leaving them with her parents whenever I was on business trips. Her family, who had always thought I wasn't good enough for her, took my kindness for weakness and deeply disliked me. I was determined that, if it were up to me, her family would no longer have access to our children. Finally, the day of the divorce hearing arrived. In court, we presented all the evidence, including video footage showing Emma's actions. The judge seemed both puzzled and somewhat frustrated by how leniently Emma's actions had been handled. Ultimately, the ruling was in my favor, though Emma still received half of our joint assets and retirement savings, except for my corporate pension. I also had to pay her half the value of our home, but I was granted full custody of the children. The court assigned Emma limited, supervised visitation, twice a month for 4 hours each time, with no requirement for child support payments. Additionally, I was required to keep her on my health insurance for the next 5 years, provided she didn't remarry. My lawyer, Edison, successfully argued to deduct loans I had given to her family from her share, leaving her with around $200,000, not counting her retirement accounts. She covered her own legal expenses, and Edison waived my fees, feeling grateful for the help I had given Olivia. Shortly after the divorce, Mason Scott left town, and his wife filed for divorce. Dan, once a close friend, moved to another area and kept his distance, which I understood, given his role in all this. After the divorce, my relationship with Avery also came to an end. She admitted she didn't see a long-term future with me, but wanted to remain friends. Though painful, I had already sensed her emotional distance. A few weeks later, Avery mentioned meeting a local FBI agent, and I wished her all the best. Sometimes we'd meet for lunch or dinner as friends, and our lives gradually went separate ways. About a month after our breakup, I was putting the kids to bed when I heard a strange noise at the front door. A soft scraping and muffled, suppressed sobbing. Thinking it might be a stray animal, I opened the door and saw Emma, barefoot and coatless, leaning against the screen. It was almost 1 a.m. and she looked utterly shattered. I let her in and saw that she was barely coherent. Rather than call the police, I decided to try to warm her up. I filled a hot bath at a temperature she used to love and helped her into it. To calm her, I even put on I Love Lucy, a show she found comforting in difficult times. I made her a strawberry smoothie, brought water with a straw, and offered her a hot grilled cheese sandwich and some chips. She ate in silence, as if afraid I might ask her to leave again. Emma spent almost 2 hours in the bath, as though leaving it would mean returning to an unpleasant reality. Finally, I offered her one of my robes and told her to get dressed. I took her to the guest room, left a few more I Love Lucy DVDs, and placed a bottle of water by the bed. "We'll talk in the morning," I said, relieved that it was Saturday and I didn't have to think about work. After a quick stop in the laundry room, I went to bed, still reflecting on what could have brought her to this state. The next morning, I decided to surprise her by letting the kids wake her up. I took Hope and Jack to the guest room, telling them a surprise awaited. Their faces lit up as they rushed forward, shouting, "Mom! Mom!" Emma's eyes flew open, and she hugged them tightly, showering them with kisses and tears, as if they hadn't seen each other for years, even though she'd only recently seen them at the last supervised visit. As I watched her interact with the kids again, a wave of old memories and complex emotions washed over me, reminding me of everything we'd been through together. Once the initial excitement settled, Emma offered to make breakfast for the children. The kids looked to me for approval, and I gave a slight nod. When they were fully absorbed in their toys and the TV, Emma and I finally sat across from each other at the kitchen table, ready to talk. "Emma, you can't stay here forever," I said, breaking the silence. She lowered her gaze, taking a deep breath before responding. "Michael, my family never truly accepted you. They thought you were too soft, too lenient. If they'd seen me that night with Mason, it would have shocked them," she admitted, her voice trembling. "They constantly criticized us, tried to convince me that you were cheating on me whenever you went away." She paused, gathering her thoughts before continuing. "Eventually, I started to believe what they were saying. My brother drew me into a fog of pills and distractions, and I lost sight of what really mattered. I'm working with a therapist now to sort all this out, but I understand if it doesn't mean anything to you anymore." Her voice wavered as she continued. "Living with my parents again, I felt used. I had to handle all the household chores. They pressured me, demanded money, and drained me of everything. Just 2 days ago, I found out my father had been writing checks from my account, and somehow my brother managed to take my car." Her words stirred a mixture of frustration and empathy within me. "The first thing we're doing is going to the bank," I said decisively. "Then we'll file a police report. You don't have to press charges, but maybe it'll make them think twice." Emma looked down, clearly feeling humiliated. "I can't believe I turned my back on you and trusted them. It feels like I'm trapped in a nightmare I can't wake up from." I kept my composure, speaking in an even tone. "Emma, you're still the mother of my children. Don't forget that." With those words, we headed to the bank. Emma slipped on a pair of worn gardening shoes, a clear sign of how much she'd lost herself. At the bank, we discovered her father had withdrawn nearly $150,000, leaving her with only a fraction of her savings. From there, we went to the police station, where I asked to speak with Detective Avery Young. Avery was surprised to see us together, but listened attentively to everything we had to say. Soon after, Emma's parents started calling her, clearly panicked, but she ignored their calls. I stood firm, resolute. I'd had enough. In the end, Emma regained her belongings, including her car. Her parents had to return her money by taking out a loan. Afterward, Emma made it clear she wanted no further contact with them. She spoke to me softly. "Thank you, Michael. I know I hurt you deeply, and I'm still working on myself. But would you allow me to stay in the guest room so I can reconnect with the kids?" I looked at her closely. "I have conditions. This won't be easy for you to hear, but you've caused me a lot of pain. If you stay, you'll have to help around the house and take responsibility for the children. There will be boundaries and strict rules if we have any hope of rebuilding trust." She winced, but agreed. I suggested discussing it with her therapist before making a final decision. "Michael, I'm truly sorry for everything," she whispered. "I can't just trust you again so easily, Emma," I replied candidly. "One more thing, there will be surveillance in the house. This won't be easy, so think it over carefully." Despite her therapist's reservations, Emma chose to stay. We agreed she would continue therapy, and I set up a separate room for her. She took practical steps to start anew, bought some fresh clothes, resumed taking birth control, and handled household chores. I provided her with a modest allowance for her contributions, which allowed her to spend a bit of time with the children. For now, our interactions remained strictly practical. I also shared everything with Olivia. Olivia was more concerned for my well-being than Emma's, warning me that this situation might prevent me from finding true happiness. "Don't let yourself get stuck in this," she cautioned. I assured her I had no intention of reverting to old habits. I even mentioned that I recently felt an interest in someone, currently unavailable, but giving me hope for the future. Olivia looked relieved, seeing that I wasn't holding on to the past. For a long time, my work was stable and monotonous. After the divorce, I began working closely with Olivia to strengthen our influence within the company. When she and her brothers inherited the company, each received 25% of the shares, while the remaining 25% were distributed among public shareholders. Over time, however, Olivia bought enough shares to increase her stake to over 40%, while her brother's shares fell to below 20%. My task was to help her secure an additional 15% of voting shares, just enough to oust her older brother from the CEO position. With dedication and carefully considered persuasive measures, I managed to rally both employees and shareholders, focusing especially on women who held significant shares. Soon, the change became a reality, and Olivia's brother quietly retired. In gratitude, Olivia rewarded me with generous bonuses and a promotion offer. Although I didn't manage to become president, she offered me the position of vice president, appointing an experienced manager as president. To celebrate, Olivia invited me to dinner at a hotel. As we enjoyed our wine, she looked at me with genuine warmth. "Michael, we did it. I couldn't have asked for a better partner in this," she said, raising her glass. "You'll make an excellent vice president," she added, clinking her glass with mine. But when she officially offered me the position, I hesitated and shook my head. "Thank you, Olivia, but I have to decline," I replied, watching her face register surprise. "But Michael, why?" she asked, clearly puzzled. I gently explained, "There's a woman who's dear to me. To pursue a relationship with her, I'd need to leave the company, as we have a strict policy against workplace relationships." Her face showed a mix of relief and curiosity. "Is it someone in the company?" she asked with evident interest. "Michael, if it's necessary to keep you here, I can change the policy. I don't want to lose you." In the weeks leading up to this moment, I had taken steps to prepare, distanced myself from past attachments, and was ready to fully embrace a new beginning. Now was the time to reveal my feelings for her. Her reaction surprised me. She took my hand, her expression warm and tender. I decided to take a chance. "Olivia, would you like to dance?" I asked, choosing this restaurant not just for the food, but for the chance to share this moment with her. She looked stunned, but allowed me to help her to her feet. "Michael, I'm older than you," she murmured, blushing. I leaned in and quietly said, "You're the woman I want. Just dance with me." We danced to a few songs, both wishing this evening could last forever. Our dinner remained untouched, but that didn't matter. I jokingly suggested we needed more privacy and showed her a key to a room. She blushed, and as I leaned in to kiss her, everything felt perfect. The days that followed were filled with joy and excitement. Olivia confessed that she had felt something for me for years, but always thought our age difference and her position would be barriers. Now that our feelings were out in the open, we were both over the moon. On Monday, she called an extraordinary board meeting to announce my departure for a romantic relationship within the company. The board, mostly women who respected me, reacted with surprise but understanding. Olivia proposed changing the company policy so we could stay, and everyone unanimously agreed. Then Mary, the new president, raised an eyebrow and asked Olivia, "So who's the lucky woman?" Blushing, Olivia looked around the room and admitted, "It's me." The board greeted this news with laughter and applause, happy for us. In the following months, Olivia and I were inseparable, spending every free moment together. She often joked that my energy exhausted her, but she was determined to keep up. Since the end of my marriage, I had felt a renewed passion for life, and Olivia shared in that enthusiasm. Our relationship was full of joy, and soon we seriously began considering marriage. One day, she surprised me. The pregnancy test came back positive. Overwhelmed with a mix of joy and excitement, I immediately proposed to her. A few weeks later, we arranged a small but beautiful wedding. It was an intimate celebration. Hope scattered flower petals, Jack held the rings, Addison stood by Olivia as a bridesmaid, and my best friend Rose was by my side. Even the judge who had handled my divorce case showed up, joking that he hoped he wouldn't see us again in his courtroom. After the wedding, Olivia and I moved into the house she had bought from her brother, a place we now called home. Emma stayed in the house where we had lived together as a family for 10 years. But once she was alone there, Emma became less involved with the children. A month later, I decided to visit her to check if she was doing okay. But what I saw shocked me. Loud music blared through the house. 4 men were sprawled on the couch nearly naked while Emma, under the influence of illegal substances, lay undressed on the floor. That evening, I realized that nothing would change her. Not kindness, not the children, not the family. She had dug herself into a pit of her own making. After taking a few photos with my phone, I left the house. The next morning, I sent those photos to Emma, telling her I no longer wanted to see her and she would no longer see the children. It's a pity she missed the chance to be a good mother to our kids, but I hope Olivia will fulfill that role well. My friend, and this is the end of the story. If you liked this story, then put your royal like and subscribe to the channel. May the force be with you.